All right, a very happy Wednesday. Damian Lillard has been traded. This is take two. I love when you do 8 minutes of, I think, really good content and then it freezes. That just makes my day when it's already a mad scramble here. So we're going to do a video with Lillard. We do it every time a trade, big trade, small trade. Certainly this is a big trade with Milwaukee, Portland, Phoenix. There's going to be a podcast out with Zach Lowe. I have not recorded it. It's 5 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. That will come out later, but I wanted to do a video kind of recapping my thoughts, did NBA Today. I joked with my wife because yesterday I went on NBA Today and we did a Boston feature and we talked about Milwaukee, the challenges of doing a 1-for-2 team trade when it involves Damian Lillard, how we had to get a third team involved. We talked about Milwaukee and Drew Holiday and how Holiday would basically have to go to maybe a third team. Eventually that will likely happen, but not as part of this trade, likely in a separate trade. We talked about Ayton going to Portland from Phoenix. So if you're someone who plays the lottery, that likely gets you $8 at Publix because you've hit 3 out of the 6 numbers. Not good enough, but we wanted to give an explanation of why, how it would work and what the numbers would be. And we talked about it on NBA Today on today also. So here's the perspective that I have on this deal here. We wrote about Giannis a few weeks ago, Tim Bontemps and Jamal Collier and myself. And when we wrote it, all Milwaukee fans said, you guys hate the Bucks. You want Giannis out. You can't stand an all-star in a small market. And I had to really just kind of sit on my hands during it because no, the article was written based on what Giannis had said, putting a championship roster together, although I can counter-argue that they paid the luxury tax the last 4 years. They've won a championship and they had they've had the best record the last 4 years, or the most wins the last 4 years. But we wrote the article, and tucked away in there was that Drew Holiday is the X factor if Giannis is in a Milwaukee uniform for the foreseeable future. And why Drew Holiday was the X factor is he's in the last year of his contract. He's got a player option for next year. He was extension eligible in February 22nd. Was Milwaukee comfortable extending him for 4 years, $223 million, earning $61 million in the last year of his contract when he was 37 years old? Was Milwaukee comfortable waiting until the offseason when Holiday could become a free agent and they can lose him for nothing and all they would have is a $12.9 million non-tax mid-level exception? Was Milwaukee comfortable with the over 38 rule where they can only offer Holiday 4 years as a free agent and a team like Philadelphia could offer 4 years and $9 million less? Were they comfortable with all those risks? And obviously, as the trade shows, they weren't. Because now you swap Holiday, the unknown, for Damian Lillard, who has 4 years, $200 million plus on his contract. And it's totally a contrast in style. Basically, you inherit the Lillard contract, an all-star player, 33 years old. It's like going out and getting that high-level wide receiver who can get you 2 touchdowns and 200 yards receiving, or maybe that running back who can rush for 160 yards, compared to that free safety who is an all-pro, all-NBA defender in Drew Holiday, but the unknown if he was going to extend for you. And that's kind of my perspective, where now Milwaukee has that insurance policy. They have that insurance policy to go to Giannis before October 23rd and say, I know it's a business decision, but here's 3 for $169. Or they have that insurance policy next offseason in mid-July when Damian Lillard is on their roster for 3 more years, and they can say to Giannis, here's 4 for $240 or 4 for $230. So that's how I look at it from the perspective of going out and getting a player like Damian Lillard. I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit as far as, man, this is a home run deal based on what Milwaukee gave up here. Lillard is a all-star, all-NBA, all-NBA defensive player, an Olympic gold medalist, is a high-level player. to make the money work, and we put it on our big board here, is that Milwaukee had to send out close to $40 million in contract. They had 8 players earning between $1.1 and $2.8 million. So that group wasn't going to work as far as Robin Lopez can't be traded. Jay Crowder can't be traded. Malik Beasley can't be traded. Was it going to be Pat They're not going to trade Bobby Portis. Is it going to be Pat Connaughton? Is it going to be Grayson Allen? Grayson Allen, expiring contract, right around $9 million. He goes to Phoenix. We're going to talk about Phoenix and Portland here. It's amazing. All the money is basically a wash. It's like a $1 million difference for all 3 teams here. So, as we said, the outgoing salary of Holiday and Allen, you fit within 110% of that $45.6 million number of Damian Lillard, who's coming out, who's got 4 years left on his contract. The last 2 years could certainly increase. 45.6, 48.8, 52.2, 56.4. Those 2 years could increase based on the growth of the salary cap. Milwaukee's still a first apron team for next year. They're likely going to be, Milwaukee's a second apron team this year. Next year, they're likely going to be a second apron team. Giannis, Damian Lillard, Middleton, and Lopez all make between $48.8 and $23 million next year. That's a high number. So they are all in. They traded a 2029 unprotected first. They could either trade a 29 or 30. Swap rights in 28 and 30. Remember, they still owe a 25 first to either New Orleans or New York. They owe a 27 first to New Orleans. Swaps in 24 and 26 to New Orleans. So they are basically tapped out. They have a 2024 second from Indiana. Perspective from Milwaukee. Perspective from Portland. Incomplete right now because we do not know what is going to happen with Jrue Holiday down the road when he is eligible to be flipped again or aggregated with contracts because he has that 2-month aggregation restricted if he's going to be moved with other salary here. So we're in a little bit of a holding. The deal's going to go through as is, this 3-teamer, unless a 4th team is roped in. We're going to be in a little bit of a holding pattern, probably to sometime in Thanksgiving-ish when that aggregation restriction could be lifted. But you look at it from Portland's perspective, you get DeAndre Ayton, 3 years left on that max contract. That flips for Nurkic. That is an upgrade, but at more of an expense. You get Toumani Camara, who is a nice young player, but it's got 4 years. First year is guaranteed. Second round pick of Phoenix. You get a 29 unprotected one. You get a 28 and 30 pick swap. Who knows where that Milwaukee roster is going to be? Now, what happens to Jrue Holiday? He is not, as I said on NBA Today, he's not going to be on this roster come next season. I would say he's not going to be on the roster come the trade deadline. Where does Jrue Holiday go? Do you engage Milwaukee now for, let's say, Kyle Lowry and 2 number 1s? Do you engage Philadelphia? I'm not putting Tyrese Maxey. What does James Harden do for you? Does that become maybe a 3-team trade? But I think the same teams that we talked about from Portland's perspective with Lillard are going to be the same teams we're talking about Jrue Holiday. Okay? So that is from Portland's perspective. That is an incomplete. The money, which is 125%, I have my notes here. They're basically, it's a $1.1 million difference. It's unbelievable here. So we're giving Portland an incomplete because we're going to wait and see what happens to Jrue Holiday. From Phoenix's perspective here, they were allowed, and let me go back to Milwaukee too. Milwaukee wouldn't have been able to do this trade next year because of the second apron restrictions on aggregating contracts. Second apron teams, if Holiday was under contract, you are not allowed to aggregate contracts here. From Phoenix's perspective, you take the 8 in contract and you basically broke it up into 4 players. You broke it up into Jusuf Nurkic, who's got 3 years left on his contract, 16-9, 18-1, 19-4. My phone is ringing. Tim Bontemps. We're going to have to wait a minute here because I'm almost done. I'm almost to the finish line with this video. You take on Grayson Allen at 8-9, expiring contract. Nasir Little at a good value contract. His rookie extension starts 6'3", 6'7", 7'2", 2.78. And Keon Johnson, who's at 2.8. You have up until October 31st to decide his team option for next year at $4.5 million. As I said, you split that 8 in contract now into 4 players. Remember, second apron teams next offseason cannot aggregate contracts. So if you're looking to move Nasir Little and Grayson Allen, you're doing it now. I mean, certainly Allen's going to be an unrestricted free agent next year. He's extension eligible. You can only tack on another 2 years at a 5% raise. That's for 6 months. Aggregation rules still apply because he was aggregated with Drew Holiday here. Phoenix goes from 187.4 to 188.7, like $1 million. It's amazing, $1 million difference here. Balances the Suns bench. Remember that roster was filled with Eric Gordon, Okogie, Damian Lee, Keita Bates-Diaz, Yuta Watanabe, Chimezie Metu, Drew Eubanks. You've got 15 guaranteed contracts. You got 2 players on partials or non, Jordan Goodwin and Ish Wainwright. So who's going to be the guy out? I would circle Grayson Allen as the potentially guy on the move next year. That's going to be the guy to circle as far as from Phoenix's perspective, as far as what that can be parlayed into. So an 11-minute video. You can go on Zach Lowe's podcast. You can read all about it here from Phoenix's perspective, from Portland's perspective, from Milwaukee's perspective. Certainly, we're going to be doing another Drew Holiday video in the near future. But for right now, those are the particulars. Hope everyone has a great day. NBA on ESPN.